I'm gonna ditch the song because tech technology is fun. And my guest here, Hailey, I have 1,001 questions for her, like I always do. So we're just gonna bring her on like stat. But first, I'm gonna tell you about her and welcome to the show too. Any questions that you have, feel free to chat us. And if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can type in the chats and we'll actually have them. We'll answer them if we can. And we just welcome your support. So here we are. Let's talk about Hailey. Hailey Dale is a best-selling author and founder of Your Content Empire, where she works with business owners who struggle to create content consistently, let alone turn it into evergreen sales funnels that actually work. This is such an important conversation because a lot of us, especially entrepreneurs or artists, we feel very conflicted about marketing ourselves. So, this is going to be super, super interesting. Anyway, there's more to tell you about her. Through her courses, Done For You services, and a tell all blog, she's helped thousands of business owners grow their audiences and sales using content, which while making the entire process easier through simple workflows and systems. When she's not talking all things content and funnels, you can find her catching up on episodes of Real Housewives. Nice. Geeking out over her latest planner. Yep. And serving up some prosecco on tap in her vintage horse trailer mobile bar. Like, super cool. Hi, Hailey.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, it's entirely my pleasure, and thank you for powering through our tech funness in the beginning. So I'm so glad this worked out, and it's entirely my pleasure. So, mobile bar, I'm not anything to do with sales, but this is the coolest thing I've ever heard about. So tell me about your mobile bar and how you got into that, and then we'll go into the sales stuff.
Oh gosh. Well, I saw a reel on Instagram because I'm a millennial and I'm not on TikTok. So see things about a 3 month later delay.
Yeah,
And I
girl.
saw this idea. I saw this horse trailer and I'm like, it was the first idea that I went to my husband with being like, we should do this. And he actually said yes. And so we just ran with it. And so we are like, oh gosh, that bio jumped the horses a little bit
Ah, ah.
because we are just finishing up the rehab of it, and like so it'll be
Oh,
launching
awesome.
kind of this spring. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was gonna ask if you do your content while, like, sitting at your mobile bar, because that is a vision of you that I love. So, eventually, that will be so, right? Awesome.
Perhaps.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into the sales voice. You work with women, but this information is transferable to men or non-binary. You can work for
Mhm.
anybody because sales is sales is sales. But I want to just dive in real quick to, like, the deepest question on everybody's mind is the resistance to marketing and selling ourselves and being consistent with that. And I wonder if you could share a little bit about the blocks to sales and marketing and content that you've come across in some of your clients that are very, very common and how you kind of coach them through that. We're diving right in. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I think the biggest issue with pairing all like with bundling all those things together is like the biggest issue with bundling
Mhm.
all those things together and not seeing them as separate things. So,
Mhm.
likely, if you are an artist listening to this, you are already creating a lot of content, whether or not you are sharing it wide and far for people to consume and people to enjoy from seeing
Yeah.
your creations. So I feel very strongly that like the content creation process and the sales process are distinct things that come up with their own blocks. And oftentimes, I don't necessarily only work with women, but I do tend to work with a lot of women. And this comes up, and it might be something that also comes up for artists around this idea, like not fear of selling, but almost like you said, like you mentioned, a
Yeah.
resistance to it, right? Like
Big
I
time.
don't want
Big
to be too
time.
salesy and I don't want to
Yeah.
be pushy or push anyone, which is,
Yeah.
kind of at the crux that a lot of us women have to deal with from our
Yeah.
upbringing to be nice and not pushy and like dismantling all those stories that we were raised
Yeah.
with. But I find that leading with content a lot of times does like 80% of the selling for you is kind of the role of content and get people ready for whatever it is you're offering, if you've reverse engineered it in a strategic way, so that by the time it comes to actually switching on to selling mode, which I like to kind of rephrase or reposition as like invitations,
Ooh,
they're
that's
already
good.
like 80% of the way there. And so you're never really needing to hard sell if you lead with content.
Oh, I love that. Invitation. Oftentimes it's a language issue for us that the mental blocks come in. And I see that time and time again with my singing clients is that if we just change the language, boom, they have access to that piece of themselves. And so, invitation, how did you come up with that word? And what kind of reaction do you get from clients that do have that resistance once you say, hey, it's an invitation?
Mhm. Gosh, I don't think I'm definitely not the first, nor will I be the last to look at it this way, but, I think for me and, like, what I do with my own sales, and I can only really think of it that way because I'm, like, really in the trenches with my customers and my students, um, is this, like, idea of detachment, right? I don't think you ever
Mhm.
wanna go there's so much mindset work that comes with
Yeah.
sales and doing launching and putting yourself out there, as I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
your audience can relate to. However, like with that, around the sales and invitation piece, like kind of being okay even if someone says no. And so there's like a
Mhm.
sentiment of detachment, like I'm going to be okay whether or not I get booked for this singing gig
Mm.
or whether or not I get
Yeah.
booked for this wedding. And kind of like that take it or leave it kind of
I love
energy
yeah.
has always served me very, very well.
Yeah.
Um, and same thing with the clients that I teach, like this content first selling method too.
Oh, it's so good because a lot of entrepreneurs and artists maybe quit prematurely their businesses because it's not working, it's not financially lucrative. And a lot of times I wonder if it isn't just we have a weird relationship with sales and marketing. And if we were to just get coached by someone like you or find that information online, we can make friends with that and then we won't have to give up our businesses. So this is why this conversation was really key to me to have with you, because I've been there too. Like when you launch an album or something, you do need sales and marketing because you could have the best album in the world, but if nobody knows about it, you've got
Mhm.
to be working somewhere else. You've got to be doing something else for finances. So this is really lucrative. So I appreciate you. Content. Let's talk about content for a minute.
Mhm.
I feel from your website that content is very, 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 very important to the sales, marketing, building six-figure businesses, all that good stuff. So, what can you share with us about how you came to figure this out? Maybe it was schooling, maybe it was, hands-on experience, but a little bit about your story and how you came to content and this focus on content as building businesses.
Oh gosh, that's a
Big
loaded
one.
question. No,
I
it's a
know.
big one. Oh my gosh. So my dream was always to work in public service, and I really wanted to like serve the community and you know, do behavioral change based communications and
Yeah.
content. And so that's what I did my master's in. That's what I got my first like job in, or my first job after my master's anyways. And for it felt like once I got the job, once I had the reality of the job and how slow things move in public service and just like
Mm,
it moves it's like glacial speed kind of thing.
yeah.
And so like my projects would just sit in my boss's desk. And so I was like, and very much the attitude in the public sector, unfortunately, for a lot of the people that I work with. Actually, when I was writing my book, I called it like, I didn't want to become a zombie. I did not want to be like a clock in and clock out at 8:30, like clock in at 8:30, clock out at 4:30, whether or not I had work to do or not.
Mhm.
And I just didn't want to like wait that out until I was ready to retire. That's not me. I really
Yeah.
need to work on what I want and when I
Yeah.
want and like pick the projects and actually see them through to
Mhm.
fruition. And so for probably like I've been in business now for 8 years. And so for that first 3 years, I was really like building my business while I was working full time as well. And so I hustled hard like every single
Yeah.
weekend, every single night, like not a day off in sight. And like, although that's certainly not the reality that a lot of
Yeah.
people can do, no, like, especially if you have children or you have other responsibilities, um, it allowed me to like reinvest in my business and it grew quickly because of that.
Yeah.
And so I think like because I was doing communications, it kind of felt like content was the output of communications kind of more in this online world.
Yeah, well, that's a really good story because you were just, being honest to yourself and saying, I can't be a zombie. I love that so much. I might have to steal that. That's so wonderful. But when we're true to our heart's desires, life gets better. You now have a very successful business and you made that transition. So good on you. Tell me about content because a lot of people get really tripped up. Oh God, if I start content, I'm going to have to be consistent and I'm going to have to do it every day. And people are going to forget about me on social media if I'm not on there all the time promoting this content. What would you say to someone like that with those kinds of blocks about content, particularly rehashing content?
Mhm.
Yeah.
First off, I would say you're likely already creating a lot of content. And so it's a matter of just being intentional and aware of the content that you are creating so that you can share it and leverage it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, like more in more places, right? The second thing that, I think really distinguishes like my approach to content, and I kind of think of like our secret sauce over at Your Content Empire,
Mhm.
is this idea of investing in long term content assets and not thinking of them as like one and done things and not like, oh, I have my blog post deadline or, oh, I have to get these lives up every
Mhm.
Thursday. And so you're in this like week in and week out kind of shuffle, like rinse and repeat kind of system where you kind of like, there's almost no space and no time to be intentional with it because you're just guilty all the time
Mhm.
about what you're not putting out or what you are behind on,
Yeah.
versus thinking a little bit more intentionally. I always think like start with what your offer is. So if it's the album or if it's like
Yeah.
whatever kind of that sales is, like what is that offer, and then reverse engineering your topics and your content from there. And then anytime you need to sell or promote that particular album, you have a whole suite of content that you can then reshare and reuse and repurpose.
That's awesome. There was a quote that I found on your website, and I'm just gonna pull it up, make sure I get it right. It was so good, and it really changed my mind about, content, and, great content is 20% strategy and 80% get the damn thing published. I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, just really getting in there. But also too, there was a really neat thing on your site, that your coach you have a coach of your own, had
Mhm.
suggested in 2020 to create no new content and still keep your business going. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So my coach, Melissa Casera, who I worked with in 2020, such a weird time to be working with a coach. Like, just that was a very strange
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
She challenged me, yeah, not to create any new content. And so I did not follow it. I did create and publish two blog posts, two kind of epic blog posts.
Atta girl.
However, I feel like that made the whole thing a success, is like it made room for these really, really big ideas and two really big
Mhm,
kind of viral posts,
mhm.
because I had more space, because I was off that content hamster wheel, and I'm creating content kind of on a weekly basis now, unless I'm in like my December sabbatical or
Yeah.
during launch mode when I'm kind of like promoting and emailing, or posting like more frequently than I tend to post.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was just an opportunity to kind of revisit my greatest hits or revisit kind of like my content library
Yeah,
and like improve it and reshare it because the information is kind of timeless in a lot of
right.
ways. So just updating it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You talk about evergreen, can you talk about that word a little bit so people understand what we mean by evergreen, content?
Yeah. So I mean it's all about like thinking of the information as timeless, which I've kind of mentioned before, but also
Mhm.
thinking about something that you can share in December or April or March or September, right? And share in 2019 or 2020 or
Yeah,
2022 or 2023. So it's about like not having anything in there which is like time stamped and detailed. That's actually, I'm having more and more clients come to us over in the agency of people being like, I have this whole heap of content, and now it's not like I want to step away from my business, but I do want to step away. Like, I do want to
mhm,
be able to leverage this more.
mhm.
And like a big part of our job is evergreenifying that content and like
Love that.
restructuring it and rebuilding kind of these campaigns that lead to their offers and making it
Mhm.
timeless.
It's so smart because then, you've done more than your share of their work already because you can use that content again and again, as opposed to time sensitive stuff that is now obsolete and no one really cares in 2022 that you did a retreat in 2019. Good. That's nice, but you can't rehash that anymore. So, you have a really cool way of planning your business content, which is your blog and your YouTube and stuff.
Mhm.
And I believe you called it the Biz-versary. Can you and content bundles was a word in there as well. Can you talk about that? I think this is a really important thing as well. I'm going to say that over and over in this conversation because people get so overwhelmed with, I'm going to have to do this every week. Oh my God. Right. I've already got so
Mhm.
much stuff going on. But your approach to your content for the year is really cool. So I wonder if you can share about that.
Yeah, well, I just got back from my Biz-versary retreat, but every year, kind of in November, it's my business anniversary. It was on November 11th, which is kind of inappropriate to be celebrating something else on November 11th, so please forgive me that. But I was working full time, and so it was like my day
Yeah.
off to actually
Yeah.
get that website launched and launch it. And so like it's kind of a long weekend. It also, my husband teaches at a university, and that happens to be when their reading break is. So it gives us a nice little window to get away from our regular space and just have like if you are doing any planning for your business, for your career, for like any content, like as much as possible, try to separate that from like the actual hands down, like creating content, just because
Yeah.
it requires such different parts of the brain, I think.
Mhm.
And so for me, yeah, I go away for a few days. Day one of my retreat is kind of like looking backwards and kind of measuring and seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work, and kind of doing like a 360-degree audit of my business to come up with those low hanging fruit
Mhm.
ideas for things to improve and goals to move forward. And then day
Mhm.
two is all about like the goals and the projects and what we're going to be launching next year, what we're maybe going to be creating new or revamping and so I break down kind of like here's kind of the campaign structure of the year. And then day three is turning that into, okay, well, what are reverse engineering from those dates? What are the individual content pieces? And what are the questions? And what are the
Mhm.
campaign messages and angles that we're going to use to lead into those campaigns?
That is so cool. And is this in a solo time, or does your husband come with you, or your team come with you, or is it just you just having time to yourself to get your thoughts
Yeah,
straight?
it tends to be just me. Sometimes I will bring my husband along, but he's not allowed to talk to me until the evening.
That was
And it
my
kind of
question, actually. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and not
Mhm.
sometimes not. Sometimes, like, I think one year we went up to Tofino, and then just this time, I'm like, "I just wanna check into a hotel with a spa and room
Oh,
service and just get away and kind of be a hermit a little bit." Yeah.
that is so good because, if it's like, "Oh, this planning my content, not looking forward to that, but now it's a vacation." Oh,
Mhm.
okay, cool. And I say that a lot of people have the blocks to content. Some people don't, right? Some people are very confident with their writing voice, and it's not a problem. And they can't, they have too many ideas, and holding back is the actual issue there. Um, how often would you suggest people post on social media? Is that something you can talk to, Haley, or is that a whole nother field?
I mean, it's not gonna be a very satisfying answer. It's gonna be a big, giant, "It depends" on
I
what
love
your
that
goals
though.
are.
Yeah.
It
No.
depends on what your goals are. It depends on the thing is you don't need to be posting all the time in order to have a successful business or
Yeah.
like yeah, I don't think that you need to. And I don't think you need to be everywhere either. I'm a big fan of like one of the tools or frameworks that I use in my business is called the ease framework. And it's
Oh,
all about like, you don't need to be everywhere. You need like one platform or one method for sharing your expertise, sharing your
yeah.
original core content. And usually for most people, that's going to be a blog or a podcast or a YouTube channel. But my only really rule there is like, as much as possible, have them come to your website. Like YouTube and Google do not need your traffic. So like embed that video on your website rather than driving them there.
Ah,
And
that's
then
so
like
smart.
some method for sales. So that's our S in there. And then the
Yep.
two, the E and the A are your socials. So one platform for engaging and having two-way conversations. So
Mhm.
great ones would be, Facebook, right? Although it's organic reach is kind of dying, so
Yeah.
maybe not there. Instagram or TikTok, anywhere where that's that two-way dialogue and you can actually have
Yeah.
conversations with your community and start to cultivate a community.
Mhm.
And then the second one is attract. So what can you do what is one platform that you can use or one strategy you can use to get your content and your offers in front of new eyeballs? So usually that might be,
Mm.
paid advertising. That could also be Pinterest is a great one. TikTok is another great one,
Mhm.
or Reels. Anything that thinking through how does the algorithm, which often gets
Yeah.
blamed for things, but how does the algorithm share content? Does it again get it in front of only people who are already following me, or does it get it in front of new eyeballs?
Mm, mm. You're just a wealth of knowledge. For those of you watching, she has a wonderful YouTube channel, and her website is super duper awesome. There's so many. You help people with this content stuff, and you have a school, and then you also can do it for them, which I like. So, the two buttons, like help me or do it for me. I thought that was really genius. What How did you know that you needed 2 avenues for your business, and what did that look like for you to then kind of, develop that?
Yeah. Okay. So for people who are just starting their business, your fastest path to cash is to do a one-on-one service, is to do some kind of done with you or done for you product or productized service where you can turn it into a
Yeah.
series of steps that you can run through really quickly. Because I had a full-time job and because of the time, I have a lot of privilege of just being a white woman where in a society where being a white woman comes with a lot of privileges and advantages,
Mhm,
but also the time that I started my business as well. And so I was
mhm.
also working full time, which allowed me to build the business that I wanted to because I had my living expenses covered. And
Yeah,
my business did not
yeah.
have to support me for the first 3.5 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I only say that because starting a digital product business or starting with the courses and the education company, you need an audience to do that, right? It's not very easy. That whole
Mhm.
first year that you're growing your business, it's all going to be about audience growth if your goal is digital products.
Yeah.
So, for the first 3 years, I did not do the agency. I only did courses because I had the luxury of doing courses.
Oh, cool.
And with that, once I got about 3 years in and I was going full time in my business, I had more space. I had a number of people asking me, "Well, can you just do this for me rather than teaching
Yeah.
me how to do it? I don't wanna know how to do it, just do it and take it
Exactly.
off my plate."
Yeah,
And so then I launched the sales funnel agency, and I was doing the majority of the work, which actually served me very well because now I
yeah,
kind of I can hire for those positions, I can step in where we need
yeah,
me. Um, and it just kinda grew from there, but it wasn't
yeah.
the done for you was not a right away thing.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because some people are like, "You know what? I got too much going on. You do it. I'll give you the money. Go for
Yeah.
it." And others are very hands-on, and maybe writing is their jam. So that makes sense that you offer those 2 things. And you've got lots of really cool products, including a book. So that's where I wanna go next with you is
Mhm.
your fabulous book. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so my book is called Your Content Rebellion. I launched it at the worst time ever in
Oh, no.
2019. And so
Oh, no.
cancel all of our launch plans there, but luckily it all worked out. I
Mhm,
was, I think as a lot of English majors can maybe relate, the dream of writing a book one day was top of my business bucket list or top of my bucket list anyways. And I always something that I wanted to do. And because of that, I built it up so much in my head and I had so much pressure that I put on myself
mhm.
around it. And then someone told me, oh, I wish I could remember who it was, just kind of in a passing kind of business conversation was this book doesn't have to be your last book. It can just be the first book, right? Oh,
That's a
yeah, of
big one. That's a big one. Yep.
obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And so the way I approach my book is I know how to create courses. So I
Yeah.
created the course first. I created blog posts and then I pulled it all together and pulled in stories. So it was
Ooh.
very much an exercise, an example of repurposing into the book. Yeah.
Oh, that's so smart. So here's my question for you because we're all about voice on here. Blog voices, content voices versus book voice. Did you
Mhm.
find that it was easy to transfer over? I mean, you did allude that it was a big deal to do a book, but was
Mhm.
it the same kind of mindset issues in both, or um, not even just issues, but like perks and opportunities that you had in one? Could you transfer over to the other one? How did that look for you?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much just like took it directly and then like we went through the editing
Yeah.
process. I think like when you're writing a book, the first challenge is really to get that first draft done as quickly as you
Yes.
can. And it can be a pile
Oh.
of dog poop. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The editing process, as you know, as an editor,
Yeah, get it
as your
out.
editing hat, like you know that, like you can really
Yeah,
mold and a lot of all the magic, I think, comes in through the editing.
yeah,
Um, so for me, it wasn't necessarily a voice thing, and I think, like, probably a lot of your audience, like, it's for the most part personal brands that we're
mhm,
building, and so
mhm.
talk like you talk. You don't need to be anyone else or sound like
Yeah,
anyone else to put your content out there.
yeah, yeah. So for people that are struggling to find their writing voice in their content, what kind of advice could you give to them? Is there anything that you've come across that really seems to resonate with folks that are having this issue?
I think okay, so my number one tip for that is to think of your content as questions and where can you break it down into the questions. So this is like
Mhm,
something that we do in the agency and it's like really demystifies the entire process for both the copywriters and for the clients that we work with. And we use a process called content interviews where we take a webinar or we take an email or we take a take anything and we
mhm,
break it down into like what questions does this thing have to answer in order
mm,
for it to fulfill its purpose, in order for it to like be that piece of
yeah,
content that delivers on that promise. And so with that, like for anyone struggling with voice, think about what the questions are and maybe just like record yourself answering them as if you were talking to a friend or your husband or
yeah,
a teacher or a student, however it would be, and just like
yeah.
yeah, like I said, it can be a pile of dog poop and then you can edit it.
It really can. I had
Yep.
an editor on, Allison K. Williams, and she calls it the vomit draft, like, just get
Yeah.
it done, no editing allowed, get it out. I really like your idea of the content interviews, because, just talking about those answers, you get clear on what you sound like. Maybe a lot of us don't
Mhm.
know what we sound like in our speaking voice, let alone what our writing voice is, but we
Yeah.
know what is not our writing voice. We know when it's not quite right. And so those content interviews, that sound recording, super helpful. So
Mhm.
for you, you work with a lot of different voices in your business. How is it for you to go between them and maintain that voice for each client? What is that process like?
Well, I do it less and less. I'm not doing a whole
Yeah.
lot of the writing anymore that I used to do.
Okay.
So speaking to it from the past, like definitely having those anchor pieces of writing as much as possible, like having the client provide sample pieces of writing that you can reference back to, asking questions like what words you use, and more lately, like what's your emoji meter? Are you a 1 or a 9? Do you use them all the time? And what emojis do you
Oh, I
use? Kind of
like that
thing.
emoji meter. Oh, I love
Emoji
that.
meter, yeah,
Yeah.
and then I think beyond that, having a lot of time for revision, right? And letting
Yeah.
yeah, the client go through it and make it sound like them, encouraging them to read it out loud. Because once you read something out loud, you'll
Yeah.
know more than likely if it sounds like you. And just
Yeah.
even, like, circle back to that, like, if someone is struggling with finding their content voice, like, just know it's a matter of practice. You're not gonna know right out of the gate. Just, like, write as much as possible, and where can you turn content into a habit? That was one of the things I did when I first started. I wrote a new blog post for 100 days straight every single morning as a way of starting my day, my work day. Not 100 days straight. I took the weekends off, but I got to 100 posts. And
Yeah.
like, it's not like a lot of those saw the light of day, although they've been like repurposed into other things. It was more
Yeah.
about the practice and the habit. And also, it was just such a great way to start my day and like have a big giant checklist check mark on my to
I
do list
love
as
that.
well. Yeah.
I love that. Are you a coffee or a tea girl with your
Coffee.
writing?
Yeah.
Coffee.
Coffee,
Yeah.
coffee.
See, I knew we were friends. We're friends. I'm a coffee girl. I wish I was more of a tea girl, but anyway. I love that you said It's a practice and a habit. Right? A lot
Mhm.
of people think the written voice is just some poof fairy godmother comes down or godfather, whichever you prefer, and you're suddenly a great writer. For some of us, that's what happens. For
Mhm.
others, we have to work at it. And I love that you were very forthright about your writing habit is like, yeah, I worked it out for 100 blog posts. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
why I am where I am. And I imagine you had some natural talent. I mean, you went to school for communication and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
But what did you notice before and after that 100-day, let's call it the 100-day blog challenge? What did you notice about your voice and your writing skills that maybe shifted?
I was a lot quicker. It became about the
Uh,
discipline of sitting down and doing it rather than humming and
yeah.
hawing and putting it off. So I think that would be
Yeah.
that would be the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I got less in my head about like thinking about the end reader and who was going to
Yeah.
consume this, which I'm sure is very similar to music, right?
Yes.
Um, and it became about the process and it came about like almost doing it as quickly
Yeah.
as possible. And like I got quick. Like I can write a blog post now in like 30 minutes. And it used to take me quite a long time. Yeah.
Wow. 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 So the discipline then becomes not getting in your head stories, would you say? Is that part of
Maybe.
it? The
Yeah,
humming and
I think
hawing
so.
about it? Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
overthinking it, overthinking like, yeah, that brain to
Yeah.
hand connection kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So when you say half an hour, is that like edited, polished, ready to publish, or is that the vomit draft, if you will, and then you go back and kind of shape it up and shine it up?
That's my vomit draft. However, by now those vomit drafts are pretty close
That's so
to
cool.
shareable.
So
Yeah.
that's so cool. I love real-time examples for folks to take away from our conversations, and that's one of them, a writing challenge. And I've seen that with songwriting as well. One
Mhm.
song per every day for a year, which sounds insanely crazy, but
I
it's not. It
know.
can be a Jingle Bells. It could be a, Old MacDonald. It doesn't have to be an epic Don't Stop Believin', but, just get that muscle going and building that habit
Yeah.
is super
I
powerful
remember
for
an
me.
interview I watched with the lead singer of Coldplay, and the name is
Ooh, Chris
like
Martin.
Chris Martin, and he said he writes a
Yeah.
song every day, and it reminded me of that writing challenge, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that about him, but it makes sense. He's a
Mhm,
phenomenal genius songwriter. Oh my goodness. Um, There's so many wonderful places I wanna go with you. So the next one would be some really cool terminology in your industry. Can you talk about procrasti-planning? I think
oh
that one's my
gosh.
favorite.
That is my own term for myself and what happens to be a lot of my, audience. So when you were talking about, if you were somebody who, like, puts off planning your content. And I'm
Yeah,
like, "Oh, that's really not my audience." My audience loves to plan, and they love their pretty Post-its, and they love their pretty planner, and the issue is not planning so much, it's around, like, creating so ambitious a plan or spending so much time on the planning process that, like, the creation
that's me.
process is, like that's that 20 and 80% that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 80% just get it done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So some people, I mean, the idea of planning their content out is new and not
Mhm.
something they thought about and they're so used to winging it and having a to-do list of all the blog times they have to get it out there. What's the difference between can you tell the difference on socials when someone's planned their content? Does it look any more polished or versus someone that's just kind of this is my vlog today and I don't
I
know
don't
what's
think
coming next
so.
week?
I
No?
don't think so. I think like the
Yeah.
one thing, and this is like pretty woo, and this is like again going back to Melissa Cassera and like what I learned from her is like the intention with which we create something or the attitude or the spirit with which we create something, like that part is transferable. So if creating that piece of content is like pulling teeth for you,
Mhm.
like I feel like your reader or your watcher or your listener is gonna be able to pick up on that,
Yeah.
versus that's why I like to
Yeah.
tell my copywriters, like, there's a lot of brand voices where I'm like, "Your one job is to have as much fun," especially when they're writing for me. I'm like, "Your one job is to have as much fun writing this as you can,
I
even if it
love it.
comes off the walls, not making sense." Yeah.
Yeah. Just have that
Mhm.
energy. I'm all about the woo. So if there's more woo that you wanna add to that conversation, go for it. Any of our questions. Um, I'll just open the floor. Is there anything else that we've talked about that you wanna add a little bit more, sprinkle a little bit more woo on there?
Oh gosh, I don't think so. Like, I'm a toe in the
Okay.
woo kinda gal, but I
Atta
will
girl.
say, like, running your business, there's, like, no greater self-development journey and, like, woo journey. Like, some of the practices that, like, are taught to me and some of the practices that I do, like, I would have rolled my eyes, like, 10,000 times
Yeah.
hearing them before starting my business, yeah.
Yeah, but you're right, there is an energy that comes through things. I know for me, if I get a client email, I know I have a gut reaction immediately, even before
Mhm.
knowing them, just from their words, just from the energy that comes through, and, I denied it for a long time. I was like, "No, no, no, it's fine." But those stories always come out later. It's like, "Oh, okay, I was picking up on this energy," whether it's super fun energy or conflicted energy. It doesn't matter. It's
Mhm.
there's something there. We get vibes, don't we? So
Mhm.
that's a really cool part to this conversation as well. Is that sprinkle a little bit of woo on the business, and maybe maybe we've got the secret formula. I don't know. I don't know. Audience growth. Build it and they will come, or find them and then build it. But how would we say this? What works? If, for example, if we have a book we're writing, but we
Mhm.
have no following whatsoever, uh, what
I
do you
mean,
do?
I personally, like, I can like, again, it's that big, giant, unsatisfying answer, "It depends." Um, with that, I can think of a lot of examples of each that sound horrific to me. Like, some people who will pre-sell a course before it's ready. And, like, the
Oh,
idea of that, like, is nails on a chalkboard to me. Like, by all means, there are some people who excel at that kind of pressure, but
yeah,
me, I would feel resentful and, like, let's talk about, like, the resentment being, like,
yeah,
transferable through those
yeah,
course materials or through that video. So, like, that sounds terrible to me.
yeah.
Um, but, like, writing a book, I can very much see the argument for, like, kinda like my approach to it where, like, for each of those, like, plan out your book and use that as your content calendar. Like, create blog posts or create videos around those topics that you wanna be repurposing
Mhm.
into that book, and you'll also grow an audience as you go too.
That's awesome. That's another way you talked about how you pulled from all your content to make your book, but you can also do it the opposite way, pull from your book to make your content.
Mhm.
For audience growth, what are some tips that you can share with our viewers here, about audience growth? Is there a magic secret sauce there? Or, everybody dreams of going viral, but I imagine there's a lot of work that goes into making something viral.
Yeah, there's a lot of 10-year overnight success stories, and
Yeah,
especially in
yeah.
in my industry, yeah. Um For audience growth, I mean, I think the way to make it manageable and less overwhelming would go back to that ease platform, like one platform or strategy for education and expertise, another one for selling, another one for
Mhm.
engagement and two-way conversations, and another one for attraction and getting in front of new eyeballs. So
Mhm.
that's my approach to make it less overwhelming and make it manageable.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that there's a secret recipe because there's so many options. That's kind of the beauty of growing, like building your business right now instead of maybe earlier, is how many options there are.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
find something, measure it, let the numbers speak. So measure regularly if it's working and double down on what's working. And like what's working is not just like what's working from a numbers perspective, but what's working from a joy perspective. Because, if you are going to be pulling teeth to like show up on Instagram,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
good luck getting consistent if your heart or joy is not in it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that we're saying joy a lot. That's a word that came up in a couple episodes ago, and it's just it's so true. If you're not loving what you're doing, we can kinda feel that.
Mhm,
It feels a little bit forced, or that's where things can turn that gross, inauthentic feeling, right? But if you
mhm,
are, I'm not saying everything has to be rainbows and lollipops. So, we put in the hours, we put in the work, but if behind it is I have to do this. This is why I'm here on this planet. I have to do this thing. So I'm loving this thing, and there's a few pieces here that maybe aren't as fun, but I'm going to go with the love and put forward the work, which is
mhm.
I love
You
it.
have to love it. Like, I get a lot of people who come to me
Yeah.
who are like, "I just need a business that makes me money. I just need I don't
Ooh.
care what it is. I don't care what I do. I don't care who I work with. This just has to work. And like
Oh,
my heart breaks a little because I'm like, no, you need to find that thing that you love enough, that you enjoy enough, that you can get through the hard stuff because it takes time to build a business. It takes time to see results. And if there's not some other reason why you're doing this and showing up, even when you're not seeing the results yet, good
yeah.
luck. Good luck
Yeah.
sticking with it long enough.
Yeah. Every business owner I've ever talked to says, if you start a business, get ready to see your shit in action because it's
Mhm,
gonna show you that self-development stuff, boom,
mhm.
in your face. So, you gotta want it. You gotta remember the why. Why are we doing this? Oh, because I love it. Okay, good. All right. I'm gonna keep going today, you know? Yeah, that's a really odd place to be in when someone says that to you. So, uh, what what do you say to those you kinda alluded to what you say, your heart breaks for them,
Mhm.
but what advice would you say to them, like, on the ground advice? What's your response to that?
Oh gosh. I
Do you
mean,
take them on as a client? That's maybe where I'm going. Do you take them on?
I
No.
don't. Yeah, I don't. And the reason is like over on the education side, we have a lot of new business owners. But
Mhm.
over on the agency done for you side, like I say no to more projects than I say yes to. And it all comes down to, you know, are you coming at this with the right intention and attention? Is it something that for us, it's a big thing. Like there's no shortcut to getting, the social proof that it works or like the
Mhm.
validation that your offer is something
Mhm.
that people want. And so we don't want to really work with anyone over in the agency until they have those first few sales and they can confidently say like, this works. I'm obsessed with this offer. And it's something that I think all my people that I wanna be helping with should do, and if they can't do that,
Yeah.
then we can't help them.
Oh, that's a big one too, is being selective about your clients because a lot of us who just want to make money from our businesses will take on whomever comes to the door.
Mhm.
And I think that it speaks to the joy and the fun as well, is that is you've got to resonate with those people. You've got to resonate
Mhm.
with those people and you've got to want to help them. And if they're a nightmare, it might not be the best relationship there. They might need to go somewhere else for someone else's services that better matches them. So I think that's really key that you said that. There's so many really key things. Oh my
Uh,
gosh, and we have
with
4
that,
minutes.
like,
Go ahead.
I think we want to shame the side hustle a lot and shame the full-time
Oh,
job and, like, the freedom that we don't have, and yet I
yeah.
will say, like, if you are just starting out, like, knowing like, keep that job until your business can pay for itself because it's gonna allow you to be more discerning and have more vision for what you wanna create.
Yeah, that's a big one. You said you were side hustling this, was it 3.5 years before you
3 about 3.5 years, yeah.
wow. So how do you know when it's time to make the side hustle the full-time hustle? I'm sure there's lots of variables, but how did you know time to go?
I I did it before my business was b giving me my full-time income that I had in my job, because, what we make in our business is not necessarily what we take home,
Yeah.
so for a lot of people, like, shouting out the rooftops, like, how much they're making and stuff like that, like, have a degree of skepticism of like, well, what did you spend to get there, first of all? And then second of
Yeah.
all, yeah, second of all, I think it came down to me, like, it's like, if I was in this full time, there's so much more that I would be able to do, where it
Mhm.
was just like a cost benefit analysis and what's the cost of me not going full time in this?
Ooh, that is so good. What's the cost of you not going full-time?
Mhm.
Boom. That
Or
that
all
that's a
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's a big one too. So, wow, I'm just loving this. We have 2 minutes left, so I wanna make sure that we get to anything. Haley, do you have anything coming up that you want to share with folks? I know you have a retreat starting tomorrow, is that right?
Yeah, we have our annual planning retreat starting tomorrow for a few days, and then Oh gosh, yeah, I don't really think anything. If you are someone creating
Yeah,
content, we have a free planner available over on the website that you can
awesome.
take out if you wanna, like, put on those training wheels and get some guided support in planning out your content. That can be
Yeah.
a great resource for people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Her website is a wealth of knowledge, so I'm gonna bring that up right now. It's yourcontentempire.com, where content genie is how you refer to yourself, and I would agree. She is a genie. So if you really just, "Hey, you know what? This might be fun to learn about, but right now I don't have the time or the want, and I need to farm this out." Haley's your girl. She can help you out there. So, but also there's education courses there too, so you can learn more about this very necessary piece to being an entrepreneur, artist, what have you. You need to be seen and heard to make the money, yes, but have this be your vocation, right? You could have the best book, the best album, but if nobody knows about it, yeah, we've said this already. So this is I'm obsessed with this conversation. So thank you, Haley, for everything. Um, i- the final word, I'm going to throw it to you before we wrap. Is there anything you want folks to know that we haven't hit on yet? Don't you love
Oh
when people
gosh,
do that?
I feel the pressure to come up with something
I know.
profound here.
Damn it. I need a super quote that's going to live forever right now. No.
Yeah. Just create, make it
Yeah.
about the habit, and like the good stuff will come.
I love that. My last question, because I forgot to ask you, are there more books coming from you? Do we
Oh,
know?
I don't know. I feel like maybe every decade there will be a new one.
Atta girl. Well, we'll keep watching you and thanks again. You can visit Haley on yourcontentempire.com. You can also follow Haley and her business on socials at Your Content Empire. She's on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. And there must be a method to that. So if you want to know more about why she's on those platforms, you might want to connect with her directly. And Haley's wonderful book, Your Content Rebellion. And where can you get the book, Haley? Is it pretty much everywhere or? Yeah.
Pretty much everywhere. Yeah, I think Amazon
Yeah.
was probably the best place to grab it. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Amazon. I'm headed there. So thank you again. And yeah, you're welcome back any time. So bye for now, love.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye. All right. That was Hailey Dale. Isn't she lovely? She's just phenomenal. I'll probably say that about everybody I ever meet because I just meet a lot of really cool people. So thank you to Haley for demystifying sales and marketing and just really giving us a good jumping off point to put that art out there with some knowledge that we can make this work. We can make this our vacation. We don't need I'm going to go in a rant, real job, right? Keep that real job. Don't make any drastic changes just yet, as Haley said, but you can do your vocation for a living if you just have that bit of knowledge behind you. Okay. You can follow us on Facebook at voxsana.co or online. There's our website, voxsana.co. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel because if you like this content, you want more, I'm totally going to pump some more out. But if you like it, I'd love to know that. So thank you so much for watching. And we'll catch you next week with Carrie Ho of the Songbird Tree. She's a vocal coach on YouTube. She's everywhere. And come with your questions and comments.